Yeah, just kind of some of the basic ways to tell if your zone being is intact or out of whack a little bit. If your 4 points misalign, what happens is you put a twist into your spine by doing that. Again, I would say with a very slight sort of caveat, but because if you really know how to align your points well, there's a way to do it that they can kind of slide around your zone game. But that's kind of beyond the scope of this right now. Because really right now you really want to understand where it's stable. And so if you twist basically somewhere, you're going to throw off your spine, which is in turn going to throw an imbalance into your zone game. Another way to read an imbalance in your zone game is being very attentive to the bipolar point on the top of the head, in the perineum, and feeling, really trying to get that line, and then feeling whether it's doing kind of some sort of kind of gyroscopic kind of motion or whether it's actually really stable as you turn. I hope you kind of get a read of it. Another thing I want to work on, but I want to work on to start out today, is the last Qigong in the set that we do. Because this exercise, and there's some other ones, and if you have Master Wong's video, he has a whole bunch of kind of exercises for cultivating the zone game. And this is similar to a couple of them. And I think it does basically the same things. If you look at it, first of all, first thing you want to do here when you do this exercise is when you drop and rise, really try to keep yourself vertical. So you don't want to drop like this, which in some of the some of the other Qigongs you do. In this one, for now, really try to keep yourself vertical as you drop and rise up. And you start out doing this, and you just really allow your body to relax. You're just going to there's kind of a wave that follows the hands that runs through your body, sinking down. What I want you to go back and look for and see if you can get a feeling for this for a minute is, if you feel going up and down your zone, doing great, but then what I want you to also pay attention to is what's happening through your whole body as you do it. What sort of sensation you're getting as your hands drop. What do you feel through your body as your hands go down into the ground? Come up, as your hands go up your body, just almost like mapping your body with the hand, almost like scanning it, like you're going into it. Basically, one of the aspects of this exercise is, besides just going up and down something, because you want to be doing that, but at the same time, you want to feel where the chi is through the whole system as you're doing it. So as you're coming up here, what you start feeling is there's a sort of a wave through your chi that follows the motion of the hands, which is also initially the motion that you're following with your mind on your Zongding. One of the reasons this correspondence is so important, it's not because it's kind of a be-all and end-all doing this, but what it develops is your Zongding really runs through the central channel, it also runs through the center of all the bones and through the joints. So through every piece of your skeleton and through the Zongding, there's kind of a radial sense of the qi. And doing this exercise, you're moving and helping to connect radially from the Zongding and skeleton, which is really part of the Zongding, out to the energy through your body. This correlation connection has to be really well developed in order for you to get to the point where when you're doing cloud hands or you're doing something else internally, that the energy comes in and out of the Zongding basically very unimpaired. So there's kind of light energy you feel as it moves up with the hands. You want your mind to really just stay right there with it. Just come up with it, connect, and back down. So this sense of this radial quality from around the Zongding out through your whole body. And we're not even really dealing with the energy as it extends out, because that's a whole other game. This has to become very, very open. And the reason is because when you take your mind into your Zongding, you actually can bring the qi in with it. And if you don't have this real open, you bring your mind into your Zongding, and like up here, some qi comes in, and over here some qi comes in, but it doesn't come in evenly around the whole Zongding, and again, it creates an imbalance.
Seems like it's real easy to track it and get that sensation when the hands are there, but once they get to this point and they go to the Lord, and you can't take them down like that.
Oh, okay. I'll tell you where the problem is, just from watching. What's happening, if you go back, when you really learn this and work on it, when you come down here, as the energy goes into the pelvis has to open and spread to let the qi into your legs. And then it goes down. If you don't open your pelvis up, it jams right in your hip joints.
At one point you were talking about letting a little pressure build up.
Yeah, and you could do that. But that's kind of, you don't really have to do that. What you have to do is really get it
Just
so
open up.
Yeah, that pressure kind of helps you kind of feel it, and get it to kind of surge through there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is the sense that when you come up, you're also drawing from your feet here?
Well, yeah, but for now, you actually want to try to get the sensation through everything. It's not like point specific. If you do an exercise like this, point specific, you're going to get a certain result you want to get. That's not the result we're looking for. Because what you're looking for here is to get the qi through your whole system to really become lively. Because then you have the possibility of really bringing it into your Zongding and having it all really connected there.
Is the awareness sort of globally on the body, not in any particular place?
Yeah, well, no, it's sort of global, but at the same time, it's going up and down.
It's coordinated with
It's coordinated with the movement. So it's almost like, it's really like it's like you're feeling the whole thing, but at the same time, your awareness changes and goes up. Comes back down.
Is it a distraction or a break of the exercise? I just noticed when I got down here, I was thinking of opening my pelvis, and I couldn't resist the thought of having some of that qi help heal my right hip and my knee. And I just kind of like, it felt so good, I just thought like, oh, just like send a little extra right over there.
No, and actually that's kind of one of the things you actually do with it if you're trying to heal something.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, for the sake of doing this from the standpoint of cultivating the strength of his own being, the more balanced it is, the better. But there would, yeah, certainly.
It's a little feeling thought can't hurt.
No.
Okay, cool.
And then when you come up, I want you to come up to this top and just stay there. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to go up to the crown of your head, up to the vibrate point, and then down. And if you need to, adjust the angle of your pelvis and everything, so you really bring your perineum into line. And if you do that, you should feel when it really hits up, you should feel the energy really amp up a little bit. Because what you're doing by doing that is you're eventually getting to where you get the connection with the spine into the central channel. And you got to just kind of play around with that until you find it's like there's a sweet spot there. When you get that sweet spot, and you want to get the energy that goes up through the body and up through the fingertips to join with the energy above you. And just bring your mind up there and just relax it. Let everything become very comfortable. And then slowly start coming down. Bottom. Try to line everything up. Relax it. And breathe. Now I want you, with your awareness, I want you to really, the best you can, put your awareness into your zone game. And just have a sense of drawing everything into it and moving it through the channel, up and down. So you're doing simultaneously, it's moving with the hands and your body. And that flow of the chi. And at the same time, it's gathering. It's doing you into where your mind is on its own. Okay, and just take a couple minutes, just kind of move around.
That's a question. Up and down, we try to stay maximum open, and up and down, we're trying to draw into the zone game.
Okay. Just wherever your mind is, you're trying to draw it into that place. So it's moving, it's not a static thing.
So the only closing I need is the physical, and just
No,
nothing more than that.
yeah, don't worry about that.
And eventually, it's possible to kind of stabilize your zongzing and clarify everything around it, even with injuries and pain and insufficiencies in various parts of your body.
Yeah, it's never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
So I want you to do a little bit of pushing this one. But what I want to do is I want you to do like we're doing in that exercise with your awareness in your mind, while you're playing with the other person, rather than, what's going on with their force, and trying to read that. Try to read from your inside how things are changing. So start out, before you start really doing much, try to get yourself in your awareness. Okay, so you're able to do this a little bit?
Not sure what we're doing, but it was interesting. It
Well,
feels like you can sort of, when you feel a little bit of force coming on, if you think about spinning it around your zone.
I should.
And yeah, you can spin it around it, and you can move it in space, and that way it's very hard for a person's force to
get on you.
Right. This is kind of one of the cores of understanding why Tai Chi fundamentally is a counterattacking art. I mean, it's not that it doesn't have offensive movements, but it's really fundamentally a counterattacking. And the reason is because if you're operating from this place, you gain such a big advantage by letting someone come into you that you want them to do that.
Yeah, it's make my day.
That's really what you want. And so this type of technique, or this type of practice, works very, very well in that context. So the other person actually commits some energy to you. It's not that you can't generate your own energy going out, but there's a certain push hands really isn't just about trying to push the other person. It's really much more about developing sensitivity and working on something. So like here, like we were having you there, working on keeping your awareness here is on hand. So you feel, so you start moving from that center of stability. That's a particular practice. Yeah, I mean, usually the purpose of it is not actually to learn how to fight, although what you learn from it really teaches you how to fight. A lot of ways. But the purpose is to become really sensitive to the person's power. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to go back and have you do exercise again. So if Jay comes here, and remember we've done this exercise quite a few times where you stabilize your zone being. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to stand and I'm going to go inside my zone. And I'm going to try, as Jay starts pushing on me, I'm going to just try to keep my awareness there and just make it more stable. If I have to move it, I have to move it to keep it stable. And so I'm just moving it to maintain the stability, not because I'm moving it to try to avoid this force. At the same time, have that sense of gathering everything into the center. It doesn't go outside. So if he starts pushing harder, I just become more stable. I take his strength and use it to make my center stronger, rather than making my center weak. So if I push on Jay, what he's going to do, he's going to just really go inside and find his center the best he can, find his own day, keep his awareness there. Now, you'll probably have to move around the space a little bit, because you'll find certain angles will disturb your awareness. And if your awareness goes, the exercise is over, start over, restart, rather than trying to grab it back. That's hard. As I start pushing, and my power comes in, he wants to just, with his mind, just try to bring the energy into his own day. So as I push more, he has to just concentrate on it. I'm actually pushing pretty hard. So if we're kind of going through this kind of piece by piece and reconstructing each thing you want to do, the first thing that you want to develop is the pulling and the pushing that's continuous through the psoas and the legs that really turns the torso. And this turning of the waist happens not with the back as the center of the turn, but the zongding is the center of the turn, and the back really turns around the zongding, so it's really kind of on the circumference of the circle. And this is important because otherwise what happens is, if you do the turning with the back as the center of the circle, what you do is, first of all, you tend to twist yourself a lot, but the other thing that will happen is the movement and the energy in the zongding doesn't get worked harmoniously with the turning from the legs. And you want to get those to work kind of in unison rather than kind of as at odds with one another, separately. So again, you want to have your zongding established, and you want to get the connection to your leg. So then when you turn, the turning is like the turning of the whole torso around the zongding. And that really gets the waist, at least vis-a-vis the horizontal turning of it, properly balanced. A couple other things you want to kind of make sure when you're doing this is you'd like to get the pulling through the legs to not just go to your back, but you want to get the sense of it going all the way up your spine. Otherwise you won't get a good connection into your arms from it. And that's one of the purposes of this exercise.
Yes.
Is that you want to get the connection with the arms and through the legs, so that the motion that's coming in the arms here, the twistings, are really coming out of the twistings of the leg. So it's not like the arms are just kind of flopping over on their own. They're being pulled and pushed from the leg motion. So the second thing you want to try to learn and work on is coordinating the shift of your weight with the change of direction of the turn. And in order to do this, as you shift your weight, there's a very clear sense of there's a dropping of the weight into the ground, into the foot. And then it bounces and rebounds. And this is really primarily what it is as you put more weight onto that leg, if your leg is loose, the joints kind of spring a little bit. And that kind of natural springing and rebounding is what keys the change of direction. So if I'm going to one side, I want to use that drop and bounce to change my direction from one side to the other. So it's more of a sense of driving down, springing out, than it is turn, stop, or even really an exaggerated kind of figure eight. There is a sense of a slight figure eight, but it's small. It's not like this. It's one thing, and just as kind of to illustrate this, and you can see this, if someone comes here and just kind of pushes on my arm or something, or pushes on my body as I'm doing this, like if I do this side to side, go ahead and just like push on my hands, the shoulders. Is what you can feel is like as I go here, you push down. Just kind of let it go, bounce it, kind of just push down and release. There's like a natural compression and release through your body. And when you do the form, it's the weight of your own body that actually does the compression and then it releases. So as you shift weight, the weight of your body goes onto one leg. If your leg stays relatively relaxed and stuff, the joints kind of compress and rebound. And you want to actually coordinate the change of direction with that compression that you have. What Michael's saying is that if you do a full weight shift, it seems like you have to kind of bounce a little bit before you turn around a second. And just do what you were doing, because I want to, okay, without. Yeah, okay. See what Michael's trying to do is he's trying to induce the bounce by like
Flexing his knee.
flexing his knee and shocking his body. That's not how you do it. What you have to do is you come back, as you go onto this leg, you need to open the hip, actually get it down, and so just your own weight then bounces. You don't want to try to create a bounce. You just have to really open the legs up and allow your weight to naturally bounce.
Don't force it, let it drop.
It also comes naturally from accepting the full weight shift,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and so the more you go onto this leg, if you're holding in your hip as you do it, yeah, then the weight that jams you, you don't get the bounce. You really loosen that up and then it just naturally. And so you really want to, it's really what you do in your, the place you can foul this up really easily is in your hips. That as you shift,
It's really starting to bug you.
you actually close down this hip instead of letting it get open, so that it's got this nice natural springiness through the whole joint. So the next thing you want to do is you want to get the turning of the spine that comes from the legs, and that length that goes up the spine to connecting to the arms. And so the arms are being turned and manipulated by the pulling of the legs. And this really develops the crossing sense of strength in your body in Tai Chi, back in cloud hands as well. That because it's the relationship of this leg and this arm. They get pulled, coordinated together. And so it's the opposites working. And a couple things, in order to do this, you have to keep the tissue, the soft tissue, lengthened. It shouldn't be stretched to where it's tight, but it can't go slack, because if it goes slack, it's like a rubber band that goes slack. It doesn't transfer the energy through the length of it. So as with any sort of kind of cord or anything like that, it needs to have a certain amount of lengthening to allow the energy to transfer without it just kind of dropping off the whole deal. So kind of think of it that, a good way to kind of think of it is kind of think is like, what you're trying to get is a sense of like, it's almost like a rubber band that runs through your leg, up your back, and out into the other arm. So that the turn and the length here, it's always lengthened, but it's got this kind of resilient stretching to it that drives the arm from the leg. And it happens opposite body, it crosses. And Jim was asking, is there something kind of analogous physiologically to like the psoas between the spine? And there is actually. That if you come to, and this is one of the reasons why in Tai Chi they talk, oh, this point's a little important, right here. Because this is where actually a couple big tendons come in and attach to your back.
What's it called?
I don't know.
Isn't there a big nerve nexus there too?
Yeah.
Like the parasympathetics just.
Yeah, so as you make that pull through there, and this is part of keeping it lengthened into your elbows. It actually puts the strength out to your elbows. So what happens is kind of an interesting thing there, physiologically. You get the motion of your legs getting up to about here in your back. And you get the motion of your arms coming out of about here in your back. So in effect, the turning power and pushing and pulling power of the body is actually almost directly connected. There's very little of the spine that's used in that. And so it's much stronger. Because if you think about it, if the connection of your arms was up here, and the connection of the legs is down, all the way like down here, what would happen then is the spine would have to be tremendously strong to not get twisted or distorted, especially if a lot of power was being used. And so what happens is if you really get this, your spine becomes much smaller in terms of the part of it that has to really carry the power. There's other things the spine does, which have to do with bending the bone, shooting the arrow and stuff. That's really kind of a separate thing. But in terms of the turning and the pull that goes through it, it's right almost through, it's almost like one continuous deal. It just goes from the leg all the way out to the hand. The more you can get that connection established, the stronger and more continuous it is. And then it just doesn't break because it's always lined up with pulling.
So the crossing over is not really going up into the spine, up the spine and out the shoulder. It's crossing over at this point you're talking about right here.
Yeah, yeah, and that goes up then through the
So it makes like an X.
Yeah,
in some
in a
sense.
sense.
Is- Robert, is that the Jade Gate? Is that what that's, no, it's the Jade Gate higher?
Jay gets higher.
Okay.
I can't remember what it's called, but it's one of those points. Important point. Important point number 6. But it is, because, and you can do a little kind of interesting exercise with this, like Jim comes up here for a minute. And what I want you to do at first is I want you to just go ahead and hold your arms out like this, just like in a circle like this, okay? And I'm gonna just kind of hold your arms. And what I want to do is I want you to just turn your waist or your torso, but not really use your legs, and try to turn my arms. Okay, do it slower. Do it slower. Don't distort the structures. Okay. Okay. Now where do you feel this?
Shoulders, back of the delts up in there.
Right. Okay, so this is basically using the strength right here to turn his arms. Now what I want you to do, I want you to sit down. Okay, now get your legs connected up into your spine so you can turn from your legs. And then what I want you to do is change a little bit of the angle of your elbows. What I'm going to do is this is part of why you drop your elbows in Tai Chi. You see how the connection into your elbows is now much lower in your back?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's funny, you can read it on it.
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah.
You look at it. Now, turn your legs. Tremendously strong.
Yep.
Much stronger. So this is part of getting that connection developed. And actually, why don't you do this a little bit with each other for a few minutes? Try to get that. The thing about the elbow angle, what it does is as I drop, if you watch my back here for a minute. Try to go back. If my elbows are up like this, the stretch is coming out about here in my body, into my body. As I drop the elbows, the stretch goes down lower. And it gets down to where then you want to get that connected in with the whole of the legs.
Almost at that same point,
Right.
the psoas connection.
And then this becomes much more stronger. Okay, so the fourth thing is really the changing of the jing on the left and right channels. And starting out just concentrating on the 4 points, the quads and the points deep inside the shoulders. Because that's going to be the easiest thing to start with. Eventually this really has to do with the full length of the channel and what's going on. But for now, I want you to really concentrate on the quad and the shoulders. What you're going to do is you're going to be changing, each one of these has the capacity to kind of suck in and pump out. And so those pumping actions are going to be continuous, and they are constantly going on throughout the cloud hands and actually throughout the rest of the form as well. But what happens is, in the quad, if I start at an end point, and this corresponds with in the step before and the step before that, where I was talking about as your weight shifts, there's the natural drop and rebound out of the floor on the weighted leg. That is the key to not only triggering the change in the direction of the turn, but it's also the point of the change of the jing in the quad. And so as I go from this side, I'm going to start out here. I'm closed, or you can think of it as being sucked into the quad here. This quad on the other side is opened up. Then as I shift, the left side here is going to start closing, and the right side is going to start pulsing open. And they're going to finish. Again, when the weight drops, it's still closing, and then as the rebound happens, it changes to pulsing open, and this side starts closing. So in this way, you're continuously either pulsing one side closed or the other side open. So it's like, it's kind of this thing here. Okay, this is closed, this is open. And this is what's happening deep down inside the quad. We worked on that, at least you can feel it a little bit, get some sense of it. So the end points, or the change points for the quad, correspond with the weight shift. At the same time, the points in the shoulders, which also really regulate a lot of the energy there, are going to change at the center. And so every time you cross the center point, the shoulders are going to change. And what this is going to do is you're going to end up with a pattern of sometimes one shoulder is open and the quad is closed. Sometimes they're both open, sometimes they're both closed, and sometimes it's flipped. One's closed, one's open. That gives you the four possible combinations, which also are the four, correspond with the four internal jings.
But it's also true that in the same way that the hip, the quads, when one is closing, the other one's opening. In the arms, there's always the opposite going on.
Right.
You never have two arms opening and
Right,
one is closing.
right, exactly. So from the center, my shoulder on the left, starting out, is open. I've just finished doing pump. And my shoulder on the right is closed. I've just finished doing on. Then as I turn, the right shoulder is going to start opening. And it's going to continue to open as I do G. And it's going to continue opening till I get back to the center again. I've completed pump. So in a sense, it's gone from being closed in, and it's continuously opening up through that half of the cycle. The right shoulder is going to do just the opposite. It's full and open here in pump in the center, and it's going to start closing as I turn, doing U, and then it's going to reverse and continue to close as I come back to the center doing on. So then I'm back at the center again, and I'm in a position where I've completed doing pump, and I've completed doing on. And then if I go to the other side, this side's going to close as I turn, do the U. As I reverse back to the center, it's going to continue to close into on. And this side, it's going to open into G and continue to open into pump. And so it's by having these two continuous sets of openings and closings in the shoulders and in the quad that are opposite, and they're done out of phase by sort of, you think of it, 90 degrees, to create the four internal changes. But the thing that's interesting is you see this, a really important thing to see here is these things are continuous manifestations. There's no, oh, I'm here, now I'll do this, and I'll just kind of wander over here and do this. It's continuously changing and continuously connecting. And that's a very, very important part of this part of Taiji. And so the thing is don't think like, oh, I open and then it stops. It's opening, and when it gets open, then it closes. It's like each one of these points is constantly either opening and closing, and it's going through this process as the legs shift, or as you come to the center. You go through the 4 cycles. Okay? So that's fourth thing.
So it seems
This is the
possible,
one that really is like chewing gum, having gum.
but it seems possible that if we sort of cultivate this understanding that in both the left and the right hips, when one is closing the other opening and vice versa, and the same thing with the shoulder nest, that reduces by in 1/2 the number of things we've got to pay attention to.
That's right.
Instead of watching my left shoulder, my right shoulder, I just,
See, this comes back to the nice aspect of cloud hands in particular, because of being symmetrical, as opposed to a lot of other moves in the form. Because a lot of, you may have, there's moves in the form, you're gonna open both. Or so it's like, these all are doing this, but through the form, it's not all like nice and symmetrical like it is here. So this is a really nice place to practice it, to kind of develop it, because you're aided by its simplicity, in a sense. So the next thing that we worked on, and you want to do, and actually I would say, the thing I was just talking about and this, you could almost interchange the order and it probably wouldn't much matter. I think though doing the changes of the jings before helps, because it helps you coordinate the tying in with the shifting and the bouncing of the weight, which is also coordinated with the earlier things. So I think it kind of completes sort of a package of things you're doing that relate a lot to one another. The next thing is the vertical motion of the waist, which I could call pumping the waist or something. But that's where as you do the movement, your waist compresses and expands. And this is done very softly. And it's done very evenly. So if you look, as I do this, the compression and the opening of my waist is symmetrical side to side. You don't want to do this. Or get it torqued. You want it to be very even. And this, if you're very relaxed and everything, this pumps a lot of fluids in your body, which is the foundation of the strength of Tai Chi. And so you want to use this this is done very soft, and it works through the whole body eventually, and it pumps all the fluids. So as I come in cloud hands, as I come and I make the change on the one side, I've gone, and again, this coordinates with the sinking and the bouncing. That the sinking, and as I'm sinking, my waist is closing, and as I rebound, it opens. So this action of the pumping of the waist corresponds with the opening and closing of the quads. And you can kind of think of, it's like part of, as the quad opens and the waist opens, it's like that allows the pressure coming out of the ground of the leg to kind of surge like a fluid through your body. And so here, closes down. So in the form, it gives a lot of lift to the palm, and it gives a lot of sucking in to the view. The next thing, and I was pointing this out last night, because we started doing this last night, that this was the answer to the question you asked. You said, what about leading with your waist? Yeah, that's the next thing. How do you lead with the waist? Well, the waist becomes and the belly becomes very loose. And you want to think the waist really isn't just like this front part, sides, it's really this whole part of your body. And what happens is, as I'm doing the weight shifting and cloud hands, as I go in, as this bounce again happens and my direction changes, if you watch my waist, it actually changes slightly ahead of my hips and the rest of my body. So it almost like pulls it along. Right now, I'll do it without leading. I'll just do it, keeping it all static. Then I'll start letting it lead. So it's like this part of my center pulls the rest around with it. And this can go both in the vertical plane, but it can also go in the horizontal plane. And actually, depending on the combination of the two, it can actually make almost like a circling motion in any direction. So this starts developing the ability for your dantian ultimately to really become the core of a revolving motion. And mostly what we did is we worked on the vertical. We didn't really work on the horizontal because we just kind of didn't have enough time. You know, someday I'll work on that more. And the Wu style uses more of the horizontal movement than the Yang style does. Yang style uses a lot of the vertical. Wu style uses a lot of the horizontal. And so as an example, this is part of the deal with the going from into the double G in Wu style. If I'm doing cloud hands, if I'm doing Yang style, okay, see here how my waist is starting to go back the other way, just slightly ahead of the motion of my rest of my body. Okay, Wu style, you have that same thing coming out here, but then here it goes down, it kind of rolls in and it becomes bounced, and then it makes a circle this way into the double G. It comes here. And then it goes back and turns the other way. So it's a little more complicated. This is important in a couple different senses, but the thing that I want you to really kind of try to get a handle on here is when this is all happening, it's still all happening around your zongding. It's all happening around the center. And over time, as your body becomes increasingly loose, the center becomes the thing that kind of drives the turning out here. It's not done from the outside of the body, it's done from actually right on the zongding or the dantian. And so it's like this point in the center really drives the outside. And there's sort of a lag, and there's a little bit of a kind of like a swirling kind of quality as it goes back and forth. It's not like this. Although at first it's very good to practice this way because it helps you really develop the proper kind of alignments you want to have, but in reality it's more, this deep down is like really moving a lot and it kind of throws the outside, almost like a revolving, like a merry-go-round or something like that.
What's the exercise for developing the vertical circle?
Standing on your head, because it reduces the weight and allows it to naturally cycle.
And is the circle,
Reduces the contact.
which direction does it go in?
In this particular one, it's going down and then up.
We have that in push.
Yeah, you do have it in Yang
Yeah.
style. See, Yang style does this, but it does the vertical circle much less frequently. And both Yang and Wu have both. It's just Wu, and it really has to do kind of really more the body structure, more than anything else. But Wu does the vertical circling a lot more, and Yang does the horizontal circling a lot more. But they both do both. So this is sort of this last piece, which has to do with gathering the qi in your mind into your Zongding. This is sort of, we didn't really have enough time to really go into this completely, but we got enough to just start getting the basic idea of the basic way you do it. Because there's actually a number of different things that go on, but this is where you really want to start. And so what happens is you're doing your motion in such a way, and this comes back to kind of this turning of the waist, that you want to increasingly get it almost like if there's a sense that it keeps winding in deeper. And so it becomes eventually this very stable place where all the energy and everything actually winds into, and it really winds into the center of the motion, going from the top of your head down through your perineum. And it also splits and goes through your legs. And the thing about the thing about it splitting into your legs, this is related to, and I kind of explained this last night, but I'll just kind of make it succinct. It's related to how you generate yang power in Tai Chi. Because what happens on the Zongding ultimately connects to the energy when it runs very deep in your body, which is eventually when it runs from the joints and goes into the bones. And sort of as your energy becomes increasingly refined and sinks and moves deeper in your body, your Zongding becomes smaller and smaller. So it's not like one happens and the other doesn't. It's sort of like the limits are intertwined. That kind of how refined your Zongding can become is because it's a function of how much your qi can actually gather into a very like thread-like kind of thing. So as your body loosens, and as your joints loosen and everything else, and the qi then progressively works deeper and deeper, it eventually gets to where it goes through the bones. And when it gets to the point where it goes through the bones, your Zongding is really like a thread. But all the energy is gathered there. So what you want to be doing is you want to do your cloud hands, and you want to really allow your body to stay relaxed. And you want to have a sense, and you just want to really develop the sense of gathering everything into the Zongding as you do it. And at the same time, however refined that sense you have of your center, that's where it is. And that's as much as you gather, in a sense, because it's limited in some ways by how you can gather through your whole system. And if your whole system is kind of going, the chi's going through the heavy tissue, then your gathering of your Zongding is going to be limited in how deep it can go. Because it's not a matter of using your imagination to feel the center. It's a matter of really actually getting your mind, your awareness, and the energy to really gather and absorb there. And as you progress, it becomes increasingly finer and finer. It also becomes increasingly stronger, which is a real interesting side effect of it. Because you would think just because it becomes more refined or smaller, why would that make any difference? Well, some reason, as it becomes finer and smaller, it becomes stronger and becomes more stable. And that's why people who have this well developed are very, very difficult to push, even though they just stand there. Because they can basically take all your energy of your push and they can just suck it into their center, and it just actually makes them stronger rather than making your power disrupting. So it takes a tremendous amount of mental concentration to keep your mind there, especially when someone's like trying to push on you or punch you and stuff. But you really eventually, that's where you go with it. And it develops this very explosive and very strong yang power, which is very electric and vibratory. Rather, and it's very, when it's used martially, it's really done, it's very disruptive. Rather than kind of the yin power, which is kind of like being hit by this big wave, this is like being just hit by like a charged pipe, something like that. I mean, it's really shocking and I mean, it's like when you get really hit by someone who knows how to do this, it's like your whole body goes into this state of like just, it's scattered for a little bit. And it's like you feel it afterwards for quite a long time. You feel like this kind of sense of like it's just in there going, and it doesn't go away.
It's like kind of like being electrocuted.
Well, yeah, in a way that's kind of a rough analogy to it, but it's got this really percussive quality that's very strong. And in cloud hands, you want to really develop that real sense of balance around the center. The thing that's really interesting as you do it, and we came to work on the steps, if you're really listening to your song being and gathered into it, as soon as you have the slightest imbalance, it's like, it just feels like it's going, whoa, it just wobbles all over the place. And so it's like this great device internally for developing really strong stability through all your breathing. So if nothing else, it'll really help you become just a lot stronger and stabler without becoming tight, without becoming using strength, but you really become stable around your center as you move. Which is the aspect of cloud hands, which is why it's associated with Zongding in the sense of it being a stepping method in Tai Chi. Because Zongding is the center of the stepping methods, or turning around the center, or stepping. So any time you move around your center, this has to be the still point of the movement. Okay? So,
And it's completely vertical.
no, not necessarily.
Oh,
Carol asked the question.
Yeah, everyone always asks that question, but it's not. When you look at,
because this guy isn't.
no, he isn't.
And you're not.
No, and Wu Jian Chuan wasn't, and all sorts of other people. So like if I'm in a forward stance here and I'm lean, my Zongding is actually not vertical, but there's times where it would be. So it doesn't have to be, because it really has to do with the energy as it connects from the top of your head down to the core of your body.
So you might feel it at different parts within your torso, right? I mean,
No.
it would be back, no.
No, it always goes from the top of your head down
Yeah.
to the center.
But if you're leaning, that would be more
Yeah.
fun, and if it would move around with you.
No, it doesn't go from here, it's not gravitational.
Okay.
That's the thing,
No.
we'd like for it to be gravitational,
Yeah.
but it's not, it's because it's energy in your own body. It's
When you're
not.
standing upright,
Yeah.
that's when you
If you're upright,
use gravity as.
then it's gravity is like a
Oh.
real good read for it. But if you're not in an upright posture, it's not.
It could be like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, a really good example of that is actually is Snake Creeps Down, where am I? Oh. Here. The strength of my Zongding right now is down like over here. And the way it moves has to do with the angling of your torso. So if you're doing a form where it's purely vertical, then it's going to be purely vertical. But not all Tai Chi is done that way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yang Chen Fu did it that way. He had a distinct forward lean. And there's some advantages martially to having a forward lean, and there's some advantages martially to being vertical. Some people have preferences. But, I mean, there's clearly different people do different things. But the key is, no matter whether you're doing you have a forward lean or you're upright, your Zongding needs to be very balanced and very clear internally. So if I'm doing like a brush knee, and I'm doing it being very vertical, I still need to have that real clarity of my center as I move.
But why?
As opposed to if I'm doing it lean more, I still have to have that Otherwise, my energy becomes very scattered. It doesn't have this clear place to where it all gathers and goes out.
Last night we did that fairly simple spinning to really wrap energy. Was that right? I mean, was that the one that we?
Which this?
Well, that one, but even just.
Yeah, just standing. Just to get it loosened up so it goes deeper, more refined. Almost any of the motions in Tai Chi, you should do this, but you can do just real simple things like just stand here and just kind of go back and forth and just try to really refine the center in which everything moves around and just get it gathered. And this becomes actually, this becomes very, very strong after a while. It's very stable. I mean, it's like, if Bill comes up and just going to push on me, if I don't have my zone ding stable and he pushes, I might be able to get it and throw him around and do something like that. But it's really different than if I'm really in my zone ding.
Try hard, Bill.
And I'm not doing anything especially mechanical there. I'm really just focusing inside. And so the little exercise we did of just having one arm and he pushes and I just focus into my zone ding and I just take all the strength in it. And no matter, he just keeps pushing, pushes as hard as he wants. Then the last thing we did is you vibrate it. And it gives them, you just vibrate your center and it actually creates this pulse that goes out.
That was like down one. That was awesome.
Okay?
You mean
All right.
Castaneda?
So, have fun.
Did you say?
Thank you.